Okay, just gonna wait for everybody to jump in here a second as we get this stream going. Um, and as you can see, we've gone from the complete opposite of yesterday. We've gone from freezing cold hat and body warmer and all that to lovely and warm today as I am traveling. And you'll see where I am very shortly, actually later, so it'll be in tomorrow's video. So we're going to be talking today about the banks and how they have just been caught, or one bank in particular has just been caught red-handed. So checking everyone can hear me okay, great. We got the ones coming in, which is perfect. Thanks for doing that at the start of the stream each time. So we're going to talk about the banks today then, and I'm using a different streaming software, so it should all work. I've just tested it all. So let's get into the first article then. Yeah, bank news, here we come. Let's get into the first article. And this has just come out from BBC. Well, it came out 3 days ago, actually, but we're going to go over all the fallouts from this. So this was about NatWest, which is a large bank in the UK. It was hit by profit fears as it admits Nigel Farage failings. Now, we're not going to focus too much on this part of the article, because what I want to focus on is some of these messages and all the other things that were actually leaked. But let's just cover this very briefly, because I think most of you know what happened with Nigel Farage. He was debanked, and they've done this big investigation, of course. It's huge investigation into it, which really wasn't an investigation. If you have done investigations before, you understand what an investigation is. This really wasn't an investigation, in my opinion, and we'll go through and we'll look at the facts here. In fact, let me just say one thing before we go through that. Here's a couple of the facts. Nigel Farage was debanked from Coutts, we know that. But it wasn't just that, it was the fact that all this information about him and his bank account was leaked to the press, so the media got that. And it was pretty embarrassing, I think, for him, because what was leaked was a lot of things around the fact that he didn't have enough money in his account to maintain the threshold, that his income wasn't enough, so they leaked all sorts of information from the fact he didn't have enough money in his account through to how much he was receiving each month. They tried to make out that he was money laundering, and they come up with all this stuff. So we're going to go into all of that. So let's go back in. So now you've got some context. So they're trying to say that after this investigation, the closure was lawful and based mainly on commercial reasons. Well, let's have a look at this and find that actually that's not. And you can see that even though the media put this out as all lawful, well, the investors didn't buy it, because what happened to NatWest shares, they fell by 18%. That's the biggest drop since 2016. And we can actually see this on Google Finance here. We can see over the last 5 days, this is NatWest Group PLC, it dropped absolute, look at this, talk about a drop, and they've got their own reasons for that, and I'll show you what they say. So it's 39% owned by the taxpayer, and they're saying that it's due to customers moving cash from current accounts to savings accounts. That's what's caused this massive drop in profits. Yes, it's this. It's nothing to do with what was just announced, and they expect people to buy into this. So there was an independent report. Whenever I see independent, I always ask the same question: who funded it? How independent was this? And it was by this law firm, Travis Smith, who investigated the closure of, they love to put all these little words in as well, UKIP leader Farage's account. And let's scroll down a little bit here then. And here's the key bits. They concluded the decision to close his account was predominantly a commercial decision, and said the bank considers its relationship with Farage to be commercially unviable because it was significantly loss-making. If you believe that, I have got a bridge in New York City to sell you. Right, so his personal information was leaked. We've got all the text messages, which he also had. We're going to go on to the text messages in a minute, and yet that was their findings. Okay, again, what do I always say? It is one big club. It's rotating doors. You've got, pat someone on the back. They do you a favor here. You do them a favor there. It's all crazy nonsense. So let's see what else they had to say then. Said the public views were not a determining factor in closing his account. Well, yes, they were. But the law firm did consider them to have supported the decision. And here's what they said, that Dame Alison, so she is the CEO, and we'll go on to that as well, disclosures about Mr. Farage probably amounted to a personal data breach. Well, obviously it did. You have the ICO, you have data protection for a reason. But honestly, it was an accident. She didn't realize that she was leaking all of this information about him. It was just an accident, right? I mean, it's crazy stuff. So this is another staggering factor. They have, okay, here it is. In the UK, banks have closed more than 343,000 accounts in the last financial year. I think 7 or 8 of those will be mine. Yeah, I've had quite a lot of those. And the ICO did an investigation. We'll come on to the text messages in a minute then. And they found, well, how did this journalist get all of this information? Who's leaking it? They said it was unacceptable, but no further regulatory action on all of this, right? So then we've got all these messages. I'm not going to go through all of them because there is a lot, but we've got all of these text messages which have been leaked now. And we can see a couple of them here. Anyone seen Nigel Farage going in on Coutts for exiting? Nah, LOL. Saying they never gave him a minimum threshold. So they're saying, things like this. What is this crackpot saying now? And they're making, they're laughing about him, making jokes, calling him Mr. Nobody, etc. So they did all of this stuff. And then there's all these other people. Now, these are senior level, I've just got to add. These are not just, someone behind the counter. These are senior level executives who were WhatsApp messaging about NF Nigel Farage. Yeah, that was cryptic. No one could figure out what NF stood for. Oh gosh. So you got all these messages. You can read these messages, and let's have a look. He says we have a political agenda. No, it's just you're an awful human being, NF, right? I mean, all of this stuff. Thanks for the publicity, Nige. Yeah, this came back to hit them hard. And then they started saying he was under investigation for fraud, etc., which just wasn't true. There was no evidence of this anywhere, and this was found in the investigation as well. Dodgy Russian connections, etc. So you got all this stuff that's been leaked. Right? I mean, you've got to read some of these messages. It goes on quite a lot. There's a lot of these messages. And then this was one of the worst ones, this email. So they came up with all these ways to debank him, even though they're saying it was because he couldn't afford it. It was actually political in nature. And you've got all these emails that prove it. So they're saying, just keep it simple. Tell him you're calling to advise him that he'll be receiving 2 letters that we can no longer continue to provide banking services to him. If he asks why, say the bank has made a commercial decision. If he presses you, just advise that you do not have further information. Explain that the letter tells him what the next steps are. If he wants to complain, just say you'll raise a complaint through our usual complaint process. Now, if you've been through any complaint process with banks or insurance company, you know that it's just a roundabout. It doesn't actually go anywhere. If you ever want to take it further, you've got to go to the ombudsman, which is what I had to do. So then, of course, it came to Jeremy Hunt, and he says he's going to change the law to stop political debanking. Again, this is all smoke and mirrors. You actually look, I've been through the whole document to see what it is they're going to do, and they're really not going to do anything. They're going to increase the notice period for terminating an account from 2 months to 3 months. That's what 90 days is. Why they didn't just say 3 months, I think they're trying to make it look better, because you've got a number 2 here and you've got 90 there. So they've got all this, The regulators said last month there was no evidence so far of accounts being closed due to political beliefs, right? Obviously, we've got all the messages, we've got all the evidence. Obviously, that is the reason for it. It is just insanity that the public know what's going on. Everyone can see what's going on, whether you like Farage or not, right? I mean, personally, I don't watch Farage. I don't, know much. I mean, I know a little bit about him, but I don't watch his TV show and GB News and all that sort of, if he even still is on GB News. So I don't really know. But my point with all of this is the same when I talk about Biden or I talk about Trump or I talk about other people. I don't really care. I'm talking about it from a point of view of trying to be unbiased and show you just how sinister some of this stuff is and what these people are up to, right? And then you see, even because this got such mainstream news and media attention, they had to do an investigation into it. And you can see all of the text messages, the emails, everything shows you that he was debanked because they just don't like him and all the political reasons. And even with all of this evidence, they still say, oh, nothing to see here, let's just move along. But the investors know. Look at what happened to NatWest stock price. Dropped off a cliff, 18%. So the general public aren't stupid, even though they try and make out as if we're all stupid, we don't know what's going on. Everyone knows what's going on. It's pretty obvious. And then a couple of other things then, as we've got some time. I was just looking through this survey they've just completed. It was a massive survey of UK banking customers, and they ranked all of these different banks from highest to lowest in terms of customer satisfaction here. So you got Monzo, Starlink, etc. Starling, a bank. And then you've got the lowest here, so TSB, Virgin Money, RBS, etc. And then they've got online and mobile banking services. So this is ipsos.com. If you want to do a search for this, you can find all of this. You can find what they are. The customers were ranking the best banks by, and overdraft services as well. So you can go on here, have a service in branches. Oh, here we go. This is going to be an interesting one. RBS is at the bottom, HSBC, TSB, all the usual culprits here are at the bottom, very low. I probably would have given a 20% satisfaction rating for a lot of these, because these branch services will be gone soon anyway. And then one last interesting article that I thought you might like, just came out today, is all around GenZ, or GenZ as we might say in UK and Europe. They've said that they would rather have a better quality of life than extra money in the bank. So we're seeing this massive changing dynamic as well now. So this was the report. 73% of those aged 18 to 25 would rather use their money to enhance their life in the present than put it towards future savings. Now, when I first heard this, I thought that was quite an unusual thing for all these people to say. But then I was talking to a younger person, and they were explaining to me, so this is why it's always good to talk to people from all, sides of the spectrum and different age groups. And they were saying they told me something called YOLO. I was like, what on earth is YOLO? Someone explained to me. It stands for you only live once. And I said, I've never heard that before. And they were just sort of sharing with me that they don't really see a future for themselves right now for all these reasons. And it was everything from things we've talked about. Because obviously the average viewer on my channel is a lot older, as I think most of you know anyway. We have some younger people, but a lot of them are older. It's usually the younger people that are quite mature and like to learn about finance and get ahead of the curve with a lot of things, or even taking my finance courses. Link in the description, wink wink. Right, it's all this sort of stuff. But they were telling me that they just see it now as this new world that they just don't really see where they fit in. A lot of them have spent all this money going to university, and now they're worried that they've got all these huge debts and no jobs to go into because AI is just wiping out jobs at a rapid rate. Even people who've done law degrees, really high-level expensive degrees, and they're just worried now that, because I was speaking to different younger people about this, and they're just worried that this law degree is going to be useless, one person said. And one girl, very interesting, said, I'm concerned that she's just got a degree as a doctor. She went to med school, did all this stuff. And she's saying that, all about IBM Watson and all these other things that can do better diagnoses than a GP or a doctor now. And, it's all this other stuff. It's quite fascinating, quite interesting when you look at all this stuff. Maybe I'll do a video on it at some point. But I wanted to just keep it short today, and I'll see you tomorrow in a new location, a nice warm location, because I'm on my way right now. As much as I love the property that I didn't really show you last night, but if you're in the private community, the Patreon, you can see the full series on the renovation, the castle renovation, as it were. You can see the entire series, all the problems and all the strife that I've been going through with that property. And even today was a nightmare as I'm heading to the airport with all the flooding, because we've got a mountain behind us as well. So all the water came off. It was just raining non-stop. It's a good series, actually. Quite interesting if you like that sort of thing, historic renovations. And so as I was rushing out to the airport, I was just letting the what should we call him, the caretaker who's looking after the place. I was just saying, okay, I'll leave this with you now. You can deal with all the flooding and the rain and everything else going on and all the tasks. So I think I'll probably leave it there for today. Thanks for being online. Thanks for being a subscriber. Really appreciate you. And apart from that, God bless, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.